Georgia games are expensive. I'm Dean Legge from Dog Post, making you a smarter Georgia fan. I'm going to tell you how to get the most out of this $500, tell you which game you should go to, and why you'll enjoy it. Let's get right to it here. $500, and this is coming off secondary market. I'm not talking about travel. You're going to have to decide your own travel situation. But if you want to watch Georgia play an SEC game, the cheapest way to do it is to travel all the way to Missouri. I would not recommend that. I would say that if you want to watch Georgia play an SEC game, they play Vanderbilt this year. You can get those tickets for about $100 each. It's probably going to be a night game, Vanderbilt. So that would be pretty good value. After that, Matt, it gets a little bit jumpy. What do you think about these prices? So you've got the Virginia game to open the season at about $150. Georgia plays Kentucky, $150. Georgia at Alabama. You couldn't even get two people into this game for the $500 we're talking about. They play at Alabama. Those tickets are over $300 right now. Georgia Tech comes to Athens. That game's about $150. Tennessee, about $200 in Athens, and Auburn, you couldn't get two people in for $500 at more than about $290 for that game. What would little Matt DeBary want to do? What would young Matt DeBary want here? Considering in our value, what are you getting when you start talking about playing Vanderbilt at home, Tennessee at home, Georgia Tech at home, or the kickoff game, or even the Kentucky game? If that's your value, and then we're going to talk about Jacksonville.
Well, I think the Tennessee game is really intriguing. A little later in the year, Georgia could be on their way to another SEC Eastern title run and in the national championship hunt still. Tennessee is a team who I think is going to get better. They have to get better. They're bringing in a ton of talent. They will be a better team than they were last year and 2 years ago. And it's still a winnable game. It's going to be a very important game. And growing up in North Georgia, I had more buddies who were Tennessee fans than, Florida fans or, Alabama fans at the time. Still plenty of Auburn around in the metro Atlanta area, but a lot of Tennessee, buddies who I play baseball with and so on. So that was always a big game, to me as a kid because of where I lived. And I think it's another important game. It always is. Georgia will still be in the national championship hunt, I think. And for the price you just said, I think that would be a solid game to try to go to, especially later in the year when things are still on the line.
Well, the reason why that Tennessee game to me sticks out the most is frankly the value that you get from it. I mean, again, we're not talking about spending the $500 on travel. Okay,
right?
All of these, I mean, the people listening, they listen to this all around the world. That it could take, and we know a lot of Dog Post subscribers don't live in Georgia. They live in California or Montana or New York or wherever. So what's close is a relative term. But for me, the reason why that Tennessee game is such a big deal is I don't think that Georgia can wrap up the East before playing Tennessee. Now it's possible, and what I mean by that is mathematically they probably are not going to wrap it up until their final game. That's not their final game in the league, but they play at Kentucky next. So I think this is that Tennessee game and the value that you're getting for $200 or fewer. Now, it's only two people can get into that game. If you're talking about four people, you're going to have to go to the Vanderbilt game, and that's going to be that game is essentially the start of their home conference play. But let's talk about Georgia, Florida, down there in Jacksonville.
The game that we know is at 3:30. By the way, the other games.
Yeah, that's the other thing about when you start talking about value with the Gators. You know when that game is. You know where it is. You know what you're getting into, which is a disaster. But once you get into the stadium, you can get in. You can take you and your wife or your fiance, your dad or whatever. You can go and still get under $500 for two tickets. It's about $210 for the game in Jacksonville. That is cheaper than the Auburn game. That's basically on par with the Tennessee game. It's certainly lower than the Alabama game. And again, like we say, you know what you're going to get. It's an afternoon game. If you live in South Georgia, anywhere from Savannah or below, maybe even Macon, you could go and come back same day. I mean, Macon maybe not, but a little lower than Macon. You could go and come back the same day. It's good value. It's a huge game. And it's about what you'd pay to watch them play Tennessee.
Yeah, if you haven't been to a Florida game, if you're a Georgia fan, that's just something you have to experience too. So it's probably not the most family friendly game or kid friendly game, but
Well, there's
uh,
kids. There's a lot of kids at that game
there
though.
are there are they shouldn't be where the areas we were walking through last time. That was a complete disaster. But it's the experience too to go along with one of the biggest rivalries in all of college football. The stakes are very high. The last 2 years, I think they've been a top 10 matchup. So.
Yep.
Um, and it's only going to get bigger, especially if Zach Evans does indeed go to Florida. I mean, there's going to be so many storylines. So, again, if you can get a good value at that game, I mean, there's nothing like it. And if you haven't been, it's definitely one that every Georgia fan, I think, needs to experience.
So there you have it. We think those games make the most sense. Tennessee and Florida, most bang for your buck. You can actually take a friend to the game while you're at it listening. Go ahead, click to subscribe right here. We'll see you over on the website.